I appreciate very much the opportunity to be a part of this meeting, and I congratulate you on continuing to move ahead despite the circumstances that we face today. I particularly want to thank Kristen again for her excellent leadership at the center, and I want to congratulate Rachel on her new position. We look forward to working with her. For me, this virtual way of communicating has advantages and some considerable disadvantages. I'm a teacher. I'm accustomed to looking students in the face and getting their reaction. Tells me what to say next. Right now, I'm looking at bookcases. The first thing I want to say is that you've invited me here every year to report to you on research that's relevant to what you do. And you do some great work, some of it at the community level. And that's what I want to talk about now. There's more attention now, more awareness now of the importance of communities, and that's good. We know that they have a lot to do with the education of children. The quality of the community has a lot to do with the quality of health care. Communities are an important factor in economic development. The list goes on. Communities are important, but we also know that some communities are better at solving their problems than other communities. It's puzzling because often these different communities aren't really all that different. They're very, very similar, but some are more resilient than others. Why is that the case? Why should that be? We got a clue from thinking about classrooms and students. Some students are the most diligent of learners. They're curious. They are resilient themselves. If things don't go well on one test, they'll buckle down and do better on the next one. If the books they are reading are not helpful, they'll go get more books. They are determined learners. So we began to think that maybe what allowed communities to stay with a problem until they got some control over it was their ability to learn from what they were doing. We found some communities with great projects. They were trying to make a success of what they were doing. But if they weren't successful, they quit. On the other hand, if their project succeeded, they also quit. Why? Because they had done what needed to be done. However, the problems they were trying to solve didn't quit. Great many of them were persistently wicked problems. They didn't go away. I'll give you an example. Chronic economic poverty is a persistent problem. So communities that learned, or better said, learning communities, seem to have an edge. So then became the question of how does a town or city or neighborhood, how does it become a learning community? That's the subject of a new report from the Kettering Foundation, Together, Building Better, Stronger Communities. It's just coming out. It's available now online, and we'll be glad to send you a printed copy if you, like me, you like to read black ink on white pages. The strategy in this report is to propose a community checkup, looking at the community in perhaps a different way, looking at things that are not normally thought of as important. For example, how are problems named in the community? Who gets to name them? Oh, well, that doesn't seem to be very important. Experts are there. They give names to problems. Politicians name problems in terms that give them a partisan advantage. The media is constantly giving names to problems. The problem with these names, which are perfectly good for some purposes, is they don't connect to what people really care about deep down. I'm not talking about opinions or beliefs. I'm talking about at our deepest level. What do we hold most dear? Our ancestors had one supreme challenge, and it was simply to stay alive. And they learned some lessons along the way about what it took to stay alive. For example, being safe from danger, being free to forage and to find the trees with the best fruits, not being coerced or pushed away. If they weren't out to work collectively, they had to share the proceeds, the benefits of that work equitably, or the group wouldn't come together the next time. Most of all, people wanted to have some control, some measure of control over what was happening around them so that they could be safe, they could be free, they could be treated fairly. Those imperatives are deep within our political DNA, and they come out when people are trying to make a difficult decision. These are different from concerns or wishes. They're not part of the list for Christmas. They are really the very core of our being, and we share them. We discovered them in watching NIF forums. People don't talk in terms of safety or freedom or abstractions. When they're trying to make a difficult decision with other people, they become aware that they value a great many things, and that often these things, these imperatives, conflict. For example, what people do to make them secure, to make them safe, may infringe in some way on their freedom to live and do as they please. And when in forums people confronted these tensions, and only when they confronted these tensions, did they begin to reflect on their experiences and what was really valuable to them. They didn't talk, as I said, in abstractions. They they told stories about experiences that they had. And as they did, they realized that they shared many of the same basic imperatives, even though they differed markedly on what to do about a problem. Yet, recognizing that they did care about many of the same things allowed them to cooperate without being in full agreement, so that they could move ahead on a problem and make some progress. The ancient Greeks called what we now refer to as deliberation as the talk we use to teach ourselves before we act. The talk we use to teach ourselves before we act. That's what deliberation is. It's a way of learning. It's a way of learning. So as communities deliberate, they learned. That may be one of the secrets to becoming a learning community. We're now testing together. It has a big label across the top which says working draft. It's being tested in book clubs. This is not a book to read in private. This is a book to read and talk about with others in the community. So the book is being tested in all kinds of groups and organizations. Maybe it's a community development organization. Maybe it's a civic organization. Pat Harbor, whom some of you know, tests our books in a club of African American women that she belongs to, and she'll probably do the same with Together. If you would like to test the reactions to this book, we'd very much like to know what they are. We'd like to know how people might apply these ideas in the very different communities they're from. We'll be glad to send you a copy in print, or it's online in a virtual version. I'm again reminded of what an opportunity it is to be here, to be able to talk to you about our research, and to tell you once again how much I admire what you're doing. You're the civic leadership of Alabama, and if Alabama is going to progress, it's going to be because of its civic leadership. Thank you.